There are a few weapons in the Division 2 that have been around since the good old days and have helped define this game. And today we're focusing in on one of those, the Dark Winter. And guess what? It's getting an epic buff for Season 2. Let's get into it.
Piece of shit wristwatch.
Bandido's back with another one, and we are drawing ever so close to the Season 2 launch, which is on October 29th, Tuesday. But join me on Monday morning to check out what the devs have to reveal as far as Season 2. Let's see where they landed with all their updates. So the devs rebalanced the game, and they made a lot of changes to gear, exotics, and weapons. And one of the weapons that's getting sort of a nerf and a buff is the Vector 45. So just to get the easy part out of the way here, the Vector 45 went from a 4430 base weapon damage to a 38295. So small adjustment there, but the RPM maintains, the base mag maintains, the reload goes up, which kind of sucks. The optimal range stays the same. So everything you see on the left is prior to Season 2, and Title Update 22 is the Season 2 update. The most exciting change that affects the named version of this Vector 45 is the killer talent. The new talent reads like this: killing an enemy with a critical hit grants 70% critical hit damage for 10 seconds. It used to be 40% critical hit damage for 10 seconds. So that's a big change. That's the standard version. On the perfect version, it goes from 50% critical hit damage to 90% critical hit damage. Meet the Dark Winter. You've probably been acquainted, but this is the weapon that hosts Perfect Killer. So as you can see, it says 50% critical hit damage, and as of Season 2, that's gonna push to 90%. That's a big deal. So although the weapon itself is getting a little bit of a nerf, the talent is getting a stellar buff. 40% increase in crit damage is much welcomed, and that puts this SMG basically back on top. I don't think this is just going to be the best SMG in the game. I think this might be the best weapon in the game now. And I think that's what the devs want. It was always a weapon that everybody sought after. It was always a very highly used weapon. And it's kind of interesting with this rebalancing that a lot of the core weapons of the Division 2 are coming back to being the kings. So we're seeing this weapon. We're also seeing the M1A get a buff, and the Magnums get a buff, and a lot of other shifts to the meta too. So kind of neat. For you new players out there, you're going to want to know how to get the Dark Winter. Now, it's not as hard as it used to be. This is a Dark Zone exclusive weapon. It used to be that you could only get it from the Dark Zone or a Dark Zone vendor. A lot of the game has changed. They've opened up the ability to get weapons without going into the Dark Zone now. There's two main ways to get it, but all of it boils down to named item caches. And the main ongoing ways to get named item caches are one, through global events. Like right now we have Golden Bullet active, and so you can earn red stars by playing that global event, and then go to this seasonal vendor and you can buy named item caches and roll the dice and hope you get the weapon. The other way that you can do is countdown. So if you play a countdown, you'll earn countdown credits that you could spend at this station. And there's a named item cache here that you can buy. If there's no global event running, this is your way to try to get the Dark Winter. Otherwise, go into the Dark Zone and hope you don't get robbed. A lot of us run damage to targets out of cover for our SMGs, and they come with a really high crit chance, which is great because that makes it a lot easier to put together a crit build, and SMGs do really well there. 1200 RPM, 45 rounds in the mag, and I have a lot of crit chance. But one of the things I wanted to showcase with the build that I have for you today is just how versatile the Dark Winter is, or the Tactical 45. So it's got a really interesting underbarrel. It's one of the few SMGs, and I mean few, that can actually host the linked laser pointer, which is neat. So that means it pairs up nicely with Technician. That's how you get that laser pointer, and that unlocks the capability to run Heartbreaker, which I might add is also getting a buff this coming season. This build that I have for you is taking advantage of 3 buffs coming in Season 2. One from the Vector, the Dark Winter, another on the Heartbreaker, and finally the backpack talent. But let's take a closer look at Heartbreaker. So this is the standard pre-buff version. It gives you assault rifle LMG damage. We're ignoring that. Like the weapon handling. Heartstopper gives us headshot supply pulse for 5 seconds, but since we're running the laser pointer, we're not worried about that, but that's how you're going to get your stacks. Weapon hits on pulsed enemies at a stack of 1% bonus armor and 1% weapon damage to pulsed enemies up to 50 stacks. 2 stacks are lost every second. So I said the devs are going to be buffing Heartbreaker. This is it. The 4-piece talent is where the buff is going to be. Headshots apply a pulse for 5 seconds. That's the same. Weapon hits on pulse enemies add and refresh a stack of 1% bonus armor. That's the same. And 1.3% damage to pulsed enemies for 5 seconds. Max stack is 50. So there's the buff. It's going to go from 1% weapon damage to 1.3% weapon damage. The stack is still going to be the same. So it's going to go from 50% weapon damage to 65% weapon damage. So 15% more weapon damage when you're just running the 4-piece gear set. But if you run the chest piece like we are, that's going to be 130% weapon damage. What's attractive about the Heartbreaker gear set is that SMGs need bonus armor. And right now I'm running Versatile as a backpack talent. We'll talk about this. It's getting a perfect version. The backpack slot is where all of our bonus armor usually comes from. Gear set allows us to get damage stacks as well as bonus armor stacks without requiring the backpack slot. Now there is a backpack for Heartbreaker that doubles your bonus armor and it gets really high, and I like that backpack, but I thought I'd showcase this new weapon talent on the backpack, which I'll get to in a second. Just to get this out of the way, I'm running the Coyote's mask so that we get that 25% crit hit damage buff at short range. For the stats, I'm basically running crit damage everywhere. Now, the reality is that some of this is gonna have crit chance. I wish it didn't, but mine's just kind of stuck with that right now. So there you go. And then here are the knees and the gloves. And that puts us at 1.3 million armor. And our total crits are at 59% crit chance and 132% crit damage. The chest piece has this talent called Max BPM. So this is going to increase your max stacks from 50 to 100. I almost always run the chest piece when I run Heartbreaker. It's not just 50% more damage, which in the future is going to be 65% more damage. It's also more bonus armor. If you run an alternate like Spotter or even Obliterate, then yeah, you can get more burst damage, but not more total damage, and you don't get more bonus armor, which is what we're really after. As far as skills go, with whatever, and then a shield, but I try not to rely on it too much because it slows you down. And bonus armor gives you shielding that allows you to move faster on the field. The backpack I'm running is Palisades to give me some 10% armor on kill. I like that. And then we got crits everywhere here. And then the talent called Versatile. This one's been here since basically day one. And you get amplified total weapon damage for 10 seconds when swapping between your primary and secondary weapons. Now, most of us don't use it for other weapons outside of the SMG shotgun combo because those other ones are really hard to control the ranges, but for SMGs it's easy. You kind of always know when you're in or outside of that 15 meters. That's 35% amplified damage for 10 seconds just for swapping your weapon, which is amazing damage. That's strong. This is a new backpack that we're getting in season 2. It's going to be called the Vigil, and it'll be hosting Perfect Versatile. It'll be part of the Legatus brand set. So this is going to give us, all the stats are going to be the same, but it's going to be 45% more amplified damage instead of 35 when using shotguns and SMGs, which is huge. Because it's a perfect talent, it's going to be stuck with that brand, which means you're going to get the 30% swap speed boost to your weapons, which is nice, but I rather have something else. So we're gonna have to see if we like that 10% amplified damage. The question on this build or in many others will be, do I want that 10% amplified damage or do I want that 10% armor on kill? And that's a tough question. But either way, it's a great talent. It always has been, but because of our need for bonus armor, we rarely run it. And by running Heartbreaker, we have a little bit of a workaround because we can have our bonus armor and our damage too. Because we're running the Dark Winter, which is going to have 90% crit damage bonus very soon, then it's going to be a very powerful build, this setup. So I recommend giving this one a try. So the thing about Versatile that you have to be careful with is you have to think about what talents you're going to run with this, because a lot of talents, including Perfect Killer, will disengage when you swap weapons. And so you have to think about your timing and you have to think about when you're going to swap or when's a good opportunity to swap. Now, the good news is that 10 seconds doesn't last for very long. So I thought about this. When the timer times out, which is going to happen a lot more than we like it to happen, then that's obviously going to be a great time to swap to your shotgun and pick up some of that amp damage while also stacking your Heartbreaker stacks. And then when the timer exhausts on that one, switch back to your SMG. So I'm running the rock and roll as the other weapon, and I'm running it with the link laser pointer also. This is my main stacker. I'm using this to build up those 100 stacks on Heartbreaker, and it feels really good. If there's a weapon that could use the amplified damage, it's this one. So what do you guys think about this Dark Winter change with that 90% crit damage? Is that insane? Is this going to be your go-to SMG? Is it going to be your #1 weapon in the game? Or do you have your eye on another? Thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
What's crack-a-lackin'?
This was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended build video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy a game from Ubisoft, enter the creator code Tuxedo Bandido to support the channel. Easy peasy. Now maybe this cheapskate can afford to sign me up for that dating app I've had my eyes on.
Follow me.
I get it.